Food. We're not going to put anything up there. I'm a hands talker. My name's Cameron George, National Ambassador to the Whiskeys of Ardbeg here in the United States. Your host of Whiskey Through Food, everybody's favorite whiskey show. The streets are talking, and I'm loving what I'm hearing. So for all of you out there who are supporting the show, following us on YouTube, subscribing to our YouTube channel, all of you who are out here watching it weekly on Facebook. That's fantastic. I'm really glad that you all are engaging and are super enthusiastic about the content that we're putting down. As always, the aim for Whiskey Through Food is to kind of knock Scotch whiskey off of this pedestal, this high horse that tells us that it can only be consumed, by those who are essentially one percenters who have access to, incredible riches, that will sip whiskey in their snifters next to their fires and their leather-backed chairs. Like, that's not what Scotch whiskey is. And to be honest, I don't really believe it ever has been. I think that was, one of marketing's greatest, scam jobs on us as consumers and as people who enjoy Scotch whiskey, is that it told us that we had to look one particular way and behave one particular way to enjoy the riches of single malt Scotch whiskey. And that's just not true. So, Whiskey Through Food, we aim to do some food pairing, we aim to make some cocktails, and we aim to taste some really, really badass whiskeys. So let me check, make sure that everybody is getting online here already. Fantastic, awesome. So we've got a few people who are tuned in already today. It's great to see your faces. I'm super excited to have a really great showing today. Right, today is an episode that I have been looking forward to for quite some time. Today is National Espresso Day, and, I would have assumed that all of our friends, who are vodka drinkers would be drinking espresso martinis. You morning people would have just been downing cups of espresso. For our friends and our family who are huge whiskey fans, chocolate roasted barley, malted barley that's chocolate roasted, goes into some of the construction of Glenmorangie Signet, one of my absolute favorite whiskeys, but we're not going to be talking about Signet today because I'm living in the future, man. I'm in the future, I'm up here. No, but tomorrow is actually National Sardine Day. So I wanted to celebrate something that was just a little bit more in lockstep with how I see the whiskeys from Ardbeg. I see this beautiful salinity that, the island of Isla is in the middle of the ocean. Obviously, it's an island. Jesus, Cameron, get it together. Mondays are tough, right? But because of that, there is, an element of sea spray and like a salinity that I see to peated whiskeys in general, not only Ardbeg. What's going on, Karen? Hey, James, what's going on? Good to see y'all. Thank you all for tuning in. Good to see you guys and gals. Today we're going to be talking about one of my absolute favorite kind of tapenade-esque food pairings. I like how, Whiskey Through Food is able to evolve. We've had a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup episode. Last week on Monday, we had, National Fast Food Day episode. On Friday, we had, a fudge episode where I made some mistakes in making the fudge, and also we were plagued by technical difficulties. But today, sardine episode. This is going to be an absolute fantastic one. So the food pairing today is a tapenade style kind of almost avocado-like toast. See this here. I'll try to hold the sardine in place as I tilt it forward. With a little bit of avocado, a little bit of tomato, some salt, some pepper, a little bit of olive oil on top, and then a sardine that I actually charred. I think that charring adds a really unique aspect to the flavor profile, and again, also the feel of how this is going to feel for when we're eating it as well. So what do sardines and whiskey have in common? Let me count the ways. Let's dive headfirst on into this. I think to do that, actually, I should grab a glass of whiskey first and foremost because, it's no fun if we can't have a wee dram, as we say. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pour myself some of Ardbeg 10-year. I'll hold the bottle out there for you. My absolute favorite whiskey in the Ardbeg core range. So, salinity. Salinity is a huge part of Ardbeg. Taste of place is something that we often talk about with the Ardbeg brand. The encapsulation of a place, a spirit of Isla, right? Isla is very unique because it is located in Scotland. Scotland is not thought of as the warmest of countries, obviously. For those of you who have been there, you'll, especially, walking around in the Highlands, you're prone to not incredibly drastic temperature fluctuations, but it doesn't get incredibly warm in the highlands and it doesn't get incredibly cold either. But on Isla specifically, Isla is the beneficiary of some pretty cool tropical kind of winds. This weather pattern on Isla ensures that it is, a very stable microclimate, and you see that manifest itself in a couple of different ways. First and foremost, you're going to see this, this kind of warming air and current, that's trapezing over the coastline of Isla, which is going to ensure that maturation happens at a very slow and kind of steady pace, not too heavy on the gas. Looking at you, bourbon drinkers in America, taste of oak, delicious, right? But no, on Isla, the slow, kind of even, temperate maturation means that you're going to have the opportunity for a lot of different flavors to start to take control over the new made spirit as it starts to mature out, right? Something that whiskey and sardines have in common is that just from the jump, from their origin, especially with malted barley, you're going to see that malted barley during the fermentation phase develops a lot of fatty acids during its fermentation. These fatty acids are going to really round out nicely after distillation into maturation phase. So these omega-3 fatty acids, that's a link right there. That's a perfect one if we're taking notes. These omega-3 fatty acids are going to benefit from oxidation. It's kind of a rancifying effect, right? Rancio is a term that we use a lot in cognac. But I think it's absolutely able to be applied to Scotch whiskey as well, because, the same way that some cheeses age gracefully over time, that's the exact same way that I see a lot of the flavor developments in Scotch whiskey. Some notes that in other spirits, we might find as flaws, but I think just the same way as we do in human beings, the beauty in human beings and the beauty in Scotch whiskey is the flaws, which are kind of, would be considered like their organic compounds. Omega-3 fatty acids, obviously, fats are an organic compound, right? So omega-3 fatty acids are incredibly beneficial and really good for human beings to ingest. That's why there is such a link between things like barbecue and the way that the human brain has developed, right? So human brain growth, right, and stimulation of brain growth and the matter is actually, you can tie a link to the development of the human brain to when we started roasting and cooking and barbecuing things outside over, essentially over open flames. So a lot of that has to do with the omega-3 fatty acids. Then you're also going to have improved, heart rhythm. Your heart rate as well. It's going to allow you to also maintain a little bit of a healthier lifestyle. Make sure you're incorporating things with high amounts of fatty acids, into your daily diet. Things like sardines, other pilchards, which are, the small fish that sardines belong to, or the family that sardines kind of belong to. All right. What's going on, Melanie? Good to see you. Casey Estrada, what's up? Brett, thank you for joining us. Fantastic. Cheers, Slanjava. Let's dive into a little bit of whiskey tasting now before we start talking about the food pairing and inevitably, ultimately make one of the most badass cocktails that we have seen on Whiskey Through Food. I feel like I say that every week. I got this down. I got it down. I'm a good host. All right, so Ardbeg Tendier in the glass. A wonderful sardine kind of tapenade or avocado toast. Don't really have a name for it. I was just kind of wheeling and dealing in the kitchen there, master chef. All right, so let's go through our whiskey windup. As always, we should approach whiskeys when analyzing them the exact same way every single time. First, coloration is going to be the first thing that we're looking at. I don't really like to swirl my whiskey in its glass too often, so I move it kind of gently, very lightly. Ardbeg has this auric gold coloration to it. Light, very light hay seed kind of color. Beautiful, beautiful. Very light in color, rich in flavor and aromatic profile. Speaking of aromatics, let's dive on into this glass. So we're gonna do that now from about chin level. Immediately, this vegetal note, the salinity that I really loved about, the food pairing is starting to pop out as well. Vegetal aspects, beautiful. Now that smoke, now that wonderful kind of, soft, like bog myrtle, heather, low-lying shrubs like that, really starting to evacuate the glass. I'm gonna hold it at kind of at a tilt like this. I'm just gonna blow into the glass, just like that. That's something that I learned from my friends over at Single Cask Nation. Really helps to evacuate a lot of the lighter chain, alcohols, right? And so essentially helps you to be able to, when you do dive into this glass, now I'm not being met with, the most volatile, components and compounds in the glass of whiskey. All of that salt, there's a richness, there's an oiliness, there's a fattiness. Maybe that's just because it's, on my fingers from interacting and refrying these sardines. All right, let's go ahead and dive in. Such a badass whiskey. This is my favorite whiskey in the world. If I had to drink one whiskey for the rest of my life, it would be Ardbeg 10-year. It's just classic. It's timeless. It encapsulates that taste of place that we were kind of talking about. Let's go ahead and see how we did with the food pairing. All right. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I've got 2 of them here, so, I wanted to make sure that we had options. Let's go ahead and hold up our... There we are. So you can see we've got the avocado as the base layer on the rye bread. We've got a little salt, pepper, also a little bit of tomato for some acidity. Another added acidulation component that we're gonna add. We're just gonna add just a squeeze of lemon zest over the top. We'll go with this one over here, actually, I think. Probably makes the most sense. Whoop. A little bit of zest over the top of those. All right, let's dive into it. I used rye bread on purpose because I wanted to, evoke some of the thoughts of the spice that you get, from alcohol, right? Some of that kind of tickle in the back of your throat that you get. I see a lot of pepper and a lot of heat coming from rye bread. So I wanted to use a Washington rye bread. Eat, drink the best ingredients that you can. All right, let's go ahead and try it. All right. That's ridiculous. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. I had no idea where this food pairing was going when I dreamed it up a couple of weeks ago, and that is absolutely fantastic. The fattiness, the spice from the rye bread, the char as well that I kind of developed by frying these sardines in butter just a little bit. The lightness, the freshness of the tomatoes adds a really interesting component as well. Let's go ahead and take another bite. That's fantastic. See how it pairs with the whiskey. Oh, so good. Things like dark chocolate now coming out of the whiskey. That dark chocolate, that fish, really interesting component. Beautiful, beautiful pairing. All right, now let's talk about a little bit of how to make a cocktail that evokes a lot of these elements. So when I'm kind of analyzing this flavor pairing, what I'm seeing, top line first and foremost, a richness, that fatty aspect coming from the fish. Really, really, really fatty, decadent. I use this word a lot on the show. Rotund is how I would describe the food pairing here today. Sorry, I've got a little of that rye bread stuck in my throat. I apologize. Right, so rotund. It's got a richness, it's got a roundness. There's a salinity to it as well, as I've said multiple times. There's more fatty kind of aspect coming in, again, from that avocado, the freshness coming from that tomato. So we can reenact all of these things in liquid form. So let's go ahead and do that now. Right, we're gonna start this cocktail off with 1 ounce of Ardbeg 10-year. Ardbeg 10 plays really nicely with others. And that's one of the reasons that I love to use it in split-based cocktails. I can always use Ardbeg as the star of the show in many cocktails, but it plays so nicely with others that I do try to incorporate other ingredients when I can. So for that, we're gonna use a little bit of Woodinville rye whiskey. Delicious rye whiskey, born and made here in my home state of Washington. I'm gonna use 1 ounce. All right, now one of my absolute favorite ingredients, Cynar. Beautiful, beautiful bittering agent. Gonna add not only an incredible mouthfeel to the cocktail, but it's also going to allow us to pull out more of that vegetal aspect that we're going to see in the Ardbeg tenure, as well as because we've got avocado, and we've also got a little bit of tomato. Artichoke, avocado, tomato, all gonna go really well together. About 3/4 of an ounce going into our cocktail. Now here's a weird ingredient. This is a fun one for us. This is a really, really fun one. We're gonna use an ounce of tomato water. Simply just juiced a couple of tomatoes. Very, very easy to do at home. Really, really fantastic, super simple. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and add 2 dashes of orange bitters just to kind of wake everything back up just a little bit. And then we're going to add a quarter, I apologize, a 1/4 of an ounce of simple syrup. There we are. Perfect. This is gonna be a really delicious cocktail. All right, next we gotta add some ice. Because remember, great cocktails are all about balance. You need components, spirit, sugar, bitters, water. We've hit all of those. We've got our spirits. We've got our sugar, which is going to be our simple syrup. We've got our bittering agents, which are going to be chinar and a little bit of Australian orange bitters. And then we've got a little bit of a modifier there. The tomato water is going to add a little bit of dilution, but we're gonna stir this cocktail to get it to the point where we really want it, right? If we felt like it, we could go ahead and garnish with, add a little bit of salt in here. Salt bay it down in there, feel me? All right. Stir in the cocktail for dilution, as opposed to shaking this one. I really want this one to maintain that rotund, again, God, I love that word, such a good word, that rotund roundness. I really absolutely love, speaking about not only the way that things smell and the way that things taste, but again, how they feel when you're drinking them as well. That should be about good. Let's go ahead and taste our cocktail first. Jesus, that's delicious. It's almost like I've done this before. Oh my God, that's fantastic. All right, we'll just put that over some rocks. At home, I don't keep sexy ice all the time. Sometimes I do, but not all the time. My man Russell, what's going on? New whiskey order is in the house. There we go. Whoop, perfection. Got the skills still. It's almost like I was a bartender at one time. So to garnish, no great cocktail is complete without its garnish. You have to have a beautiful garnish. It doesn't need to be beautiful, but I think it needs to serve a purpose, right? So we're gonna zest a little bit of this lemon over the top, really just to kind of awaken everything. Remember, we kissed the sardines, the sardine toast with a little bit of lemon peel as well. Very, very important. Next, what we're going to do is we're gonna go ahead and take our bar spoon. We're gonna take the sardine canister, and I love using oils to garnish. Remember, cocktails are an experience, not only about how they smell, how they taste, but also how they feel. So we're gonna add some of those lipids right to the top of the cocktail, just a little bit, not too much, right? And we'll make sure that we get it all over the different parts of the cocktail. Oh, I almost forgot the last portion of our garnish today. Last portion of the garnish. Make sure that we wash this spoon later. All right. And we will garnish with just a little bit of the sardine. What a perfect little cocktail. Took a lot of elements from another famous cocktail, the Bloody Mary, but made it more of a stirred, brown bitter stirred approach to a cocktail. You've got all the fats that you really love. Remember, Bloody Marys oftentimes are served with bacon, hamburgers, corn dogs, things like that that are going to add a richness and experience to the cocktail. Edible garnishes are never a bad thing. I'm going to go ahead and eat this before it falls all the way in. All right, that's delicious. Cheers. Slanjava, another fantastic cocktail. Let's see how we did. That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. The oil coats the front palate. the pointedness of the chinar, the vegetal and kind of angular structure of the chinar cuts right through it. Initially, after that first burst of lipids, you get a directness that I attribute to the chinar, a sweetness that's going to come from an American whiskey, Woodinville rye whiskey that's aged in virgin oak casks. Those virgin oak casks, as we have discussed on many episodes, are going to give us a little bit of a sweetness to this whiskey, as well as a little bit of fire and brimstone and heat at the same time. And then, of course, the star of the show, Ardbeg Tenure, rounds everything out just incredibly nicely. Let's go ahead and try it again. The saltiness, the salinity, really beautiful. I can really get those omega-3 fatty acids, those fats coming through in the cocktail. Wonderful. Let's go ahead and see how we pair that to our food pairing today. Whiskey through food. National Sardine Day tomorrow. So that's why we've selected sardine as the key ingredient for our cocktail. That bite was just avocado and a little bit of tomato. Let's get a good bite here. The oils, the fats, the sweetness, really beautiful. Great. That's probably going to be a staple here in my house. That was so easy to make. Took me 5 minutes. Let's see about the cocktail. That's money in the bank. That is money in the bank all day. You don't need a bunch of obscure ingredients. I used only the finest single malt Scotch whiskey known to man, Ardbeg Tenure. An incredible rye whiskey, a wonderful Amaro, an incredible bittering agent, and a little bit of house-made simple syrup, and then a can of sardines that I bought at the store for $2, right? So great cocktails don't need to be incredibly complex. You don't need to reinvent the wheel every single time. You want to have a beautiful cocktail, right? So start with the basics. Dissect, dissect, dissect. Reassemble, 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 right? It's that easy. So, as always, I'm Cameron George, National Ambassador to Ardbeg and host of Whiskey Through Food, your best friend and the heavily peated preacher. Until later on this week, Friday to be exact, I guess have a fantastic week, and I'll see y'all on Friday for another episode of Whiskey Through Food. Cheers, Slàinte mhath.